So a lot of the time when I talk, I'm pointing to awareness, right? And the reason that I do that is that um, since very early on, our entire attention has been placed on everything else, and we've forgotten all about that unique capacity of just being aware of whatever it is that's appearing. So that capacity is never lost. It's just been sort of fused with just our experience of walking about in the world and doing our things and thinking things in our mind, etc. And so we've sort of lost the recognition of the significance of just that fundamental awareness that was there from the very beginning. There's never been a time when it was absent. We've just presumed that it was. Well, we never even considered it. We just presumed that, what I am is this body, mind, and somehow there's a separate person inside there. And so that's the reason that I spend a lot of time pointing to this awareness, just to sort of tease it apart from where it's been fused with our presumption about who we are. But that's not to say that awareness is everything and that none of this exists, right? Because that would be just another form of fundamentalism, right? It's like this is true and that is not true. And so when the term non-duality is used in spirituality, it basically means not two, right? And so that means nothing is excluded. It's not like this is, whatever we define as real or good or godly or whatever, and then there's that other stuff over there. The non-duality really is inclusive of, well, the whole package, right? Otherwise, we're talking about, one creation and then somehow think that the things that we don't like are part of that other creation over there, however that happened. I mean, it's astonishing enough that the one creation happened, and to think that, we can somehow compartmentalize that into things that, we from our own individual perspective like or don't like. So, when we talk about awareness, and when I said yesterday that it is primary, it's again, giving it the importance that it deserves, but at the same time not dismissing whatever it is that it's conscious of, right? So, some traditions or some teachings will say, well, the world doesn't exist. Well, the world's pretty amazing, right? Why try to dismiss it? So that's not the objective, to try to deny anything in our experience. It's just to put things in the right place. What is fundamental and our, the point of constancy, the point of permanence in our existence is consciousness, is this awareness. And everything else is in a constant state of flux, but that is its beauty, right? I mean, that's what creates life. If life didn't have that movement, that impermanence, it would, what would it be? It would be sort of a frozen, inert place, right? But it's not that. It's constantly moving, constantly evolving, constantly coming, into existence and out of existence, and yet life as a whole continues. So that's, none of what we've been talking about is in any way a denial of the reality of that. It's really to see the whole of what we are, and to see that, what we are isn't just, a separate individual self apart from all of that, right? I mean, it would be the same as saying, well, a flowering plant is somehow independent of rain and sun and soil. Well, no, it couldn't exist that way, nor can we, but we tend to assume that, we're somehow separate. So that whole idea of separation from the rest of creation causes us to suffer, right? Because as soon as we believe that we're separate, somehow there's something there that has to be defended, protected. I'm not talking about physically now. I'm talking about sort of more psychologically, protected, defended, as if the world that we live in is somehow an alien place. But when we can see that we are a part of that, we're absolutely a part of nature and all exists like everything else. And when we believe that we're not, when we believe that we're separate somehow, that has consequences. And you can see those consequences in the state of the world, in terms of how we treat water and air and plants and food and other people and etc. So the importance of recognizing this awareness is when we see that it is actually our fundamental nature, expressed as this, expressed as and through this, but that the awareness itself is the essence of what we are and everything else. And then when we really sense into that, at first it may appear like it's my awareness, right? My little awareness bubble, sort of in this vicinity. But when we really begin to look at that, we realize that it's not something that we possess or generate. It's something that is living through these forms. And when we begin to catch on to that, we realize that the awareness that's here isn't differentiated in any way from the awareness that's there in all of us already. Like one consciousness functioning through this body, it looks like this. Functioning through your body, it looks like that. So when we can perceive that in ourselves, then, when we're trying to be compassionate, we're not doing it as a separate individual, trying to be compassionate for that separate individual over there with all our differences. Where it comes from is that underlying, undifferentiated, not even a connection, right? It's just as things are. And you can call that undifferentiated connection, source of life, flowing through each of us, whatever you like. Right? The point isn't what we name it, the point is sensing into it directly in our own experience. So it's nothing that we've talked about hopefully will be taken as a theory or a ideology, but it's really something, an avenue to be investigated for oneself. And the beauty of it is that it can be recognized, can be experienced directly. It doesn't require anybody else to say so. The only value in me or other people talking about it is just to suggest an avenue to look. It saves some time. And, but it doesn't do any good to just take my word for it or anybody else's word for it, other than perhaps sparking some curiosity, like I wonder if that could actually be true, you know? And but then the next step is really up to you, you know, like to test it. Like I'll investigate it myself and see if it's true or not, you know, like a good scientist. And you know, really go into it if the curiosity's there, and then you know, the proof is really of the tasting of it yourself, right? You know, if you've never eaten anything sweet in your whole life, and someone is trying to describe to you what sweetness was, I mean, they could talk for weeks about it, and you'd still really, you'd have maybe some vague theory about it, what it might be, but you'd have, you know, but one lump of sugar in your mouth solves the whole problem. You know? So it's not in the sugar, right? It's not in, you know, the object. It's in the, you know, the really ingesting it ourselves to have that direct experience. Once that's there, then there's no need for the, you know, the pointer or the theories or the, you know, when the direct experience is there, it's has this quality of self-verification. It's obvious, right? It's undeniable. And because it's who we are, it's just finally touching into that essential fact. So this, you know, this apparent distinction when we talk about it, you know, no matter how you talk about it, tends to divide things up a bit. So you can talk about awareness, and then you can talk about objects within awareness. But it's actually all one phenomena. It's actually, you know, you can talk about the perceiver, you know, whatever it is that has this capacity to perceive things. Then there's the act of perceiving, whatever the sensory arising is. And then there's the object of perception, right? So perceiver, perceiving, perception, right? Where's the boundary? You know, the only boundary that exists is in our mental capacity to slice and dice. You know, so while we talk about awareness as, you know, sort of being aware of objects within awareness, the reality of it, it's all one phenomena. Sometimes the awareness is just spacious, sometimes the objects are there, but it's, however that appears is how it appears in that moment. You know, so there's, you know, total fluidity there. It's not like we're trying to be conscious and trying to, you know, dismiss what we're conscious of. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to do that. But it's actually all one arising. That's really the non-duality of it. The non, you know, you know, not dividing it in two or more pieces. It's just really all one experience arising. And that's the absolute miracle of it, that capacity that we have to experience all of this, our own bodies, our own mind, all of creation, and our ability to experience that is absolutely stunning. None of it had to be, right? That all of that entire experience, this entire world, this entire capacity to arise out of what? Apparent nothingness, right? When we really stop to consider the absolute stunning marvel of that and our opportunity to live that, how can we not be grateful? Now, sure, there's, ups and downs in life, no doubt. But my suggestion is that those challenges are really life's way of getting us to loosen our grip on what we thought was living this life and really look at a deeper level to see what's really happening here.